Welcome to Season 3 of This Is Your Life in Silicon Valley, a podcast about the Bay Area, technology, and culture. I'm your host, Sunil Rajaraman, and I'm joined by my co-host, Yasha Kakis-Wolf.
Dang, Sunil, you have a buttery, smooth voice. I think it sounds really nice with that new music that we have in the opening.
That's really, really kind. I did not expect to get a compliment during an intro of the podcast, but I really appreciate it.
Well, I kind of feel like you're family, Sunil. I know that we've got this little endeavor of the podcast together, but it's not really like work. It's like hanging out with your brother, which is pretty darn cool. Have you ever thought about starting a business with somebody that's in your family?
I have not personally, but clearly other people do and are quite successful at it. Most notably our guest today.
Dawoon Kang is maybe best known for starting the business Coffee Meets Bagel. Pretty interesting dating service. Kind of cool to talk about more dating services, especially at this point in time during the pandemic and kind of shelter in place. But she also happens to have been an entrepreneur that chose to start a business with her family members.
Yeah, and really intriguing hearing the story about, the founding story of the business, but also how it's evolved and how, dating in general is evolving during the pandemic. There's really something in this episode for everybody.
Two married guys living in Silicon Valley can't get enough of learning about dating. We hope you enjoyed this one. Welcome to the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for having me.
We were after we made it through all the technical difficulties that I enforced on everybody here. I'm super happy to get to see you. Sunil, what's happening today? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I was telling Dawoon at the start of this that the biggest challenge with these remote recordings is not talking over each other, and so we're going to give her as much space as possible to answer questions today.
Yeah, we have a running jar.
To our listeners, there won't be any interruptions.
Except for that one.
There's already the first one.
There's two. I think we did two. We have we give each other $1 every time we talk over one another. So we're up to like $800 at this point. We're doing pretty well. It's going to go into some seed investment.
What are you guys going to do with that $800? It's a lot.
It's all sourdough starters. It's all going into sourdough starters. Hey,
nice.
I'm curious. Are you a Bay Area native?
No, I'm from Korea.
And was like in the twinkle of your eye as a young person growing up in Korea, did you say, I have to live in Silicon Valley? Was that ever a part of things that were important to you?
No, it was not. Actually, I didn't even know what Silicon Valley was. San Francisco, I don't think I've heard of San Francisco for probably most of my young adult life. Yeah, so it was not in the picture whatsoever.
Well, what happened for you as a young person that brought you to the West Coast of the U.S. and how did you end up in Silicon Valley? Like, what's the story that brought you here?
Yeah, so I think to tell that story, I have to take you all the way back to when I was little, growing up in Korea with my two sisters. And, my dad was an entrepreneur. Both my parents actually were entrepreneurs. So my mom operated few, businesses like stores. And then particularly my dad, who, majority of the influence of like my aspiration to become an entrepreneur came from him. So he started his business, which is a scrap metal business, recycling metal, right after college with his brother, so my uncle. And, at the time he didn't have a lot of money. He was able to get some from his dad, his grandfather. And, all of his life up until now it's been probably more than 30, maybe close to even 40 years or more. He's dedicated his life to building this business. And I remember growing up, touring his factory. He always took us to show us different machines that he actually designed himself. He was a mechanical engineer, and to increase operating efficiency of his plant. And we were always inspired by his dedication to this another baby that we as we called it. And so the three of us growing up has always said, hey, like at some point when we grow up, let's actually start our own business. So that was always kind of on the back of our mind. And as we grew up, the other side of us is that, very, very traditional Asian family, very academically, it was very emphasized, going to good school, going to get a good job, all that, which is part of our culture. And so we kind of never really went back to visit that discussion, that dream that we talked about for a long time. And then it was 2012, and when my twin sister graduated from her business school studies, she decided, hey, like, maybe this is, among the three of us, we have now about, decade of experience each working. And maybe this is a good time for us to visit that thing that we talked about when we were growing up. Because, as we all know, as we get older and then we have more financial responsibility and obligations, it becomes harder, practically speaking, to be able to take risks. So it felt like a really good time. And so, we kind of gave ourselves, she actually gave herself a year, hey, like, I'm going to try to, like lead this and you guys can kind of support me. I'm not going to find a job right now, do this full time. My other sister and I both had full-time job at the time. And so, if we find something great and that, that we like, then let's work on it. If we don't, then, it's a year of lost time. So no big deal. I'll just go and find another job. And so that kind of began our search for, a problem that we found interesting and we found passionate enough to want to dedicate, large bulk of our lives. Like, I think because I'm not really used to Silicon Valley thinking, and the model of entrepreneurship that I saw growing up was my dad, who basically dedicated like 40, 50 years of his life doing this. From my mind, it had to be a problem that we would feel good about, dedicating that much amount of time solving it, because we love it so much. And then we landed in dating for many reasons that I could get into. But anyway, so that's kind of how we got into business. And then, that led us to Silicon Valley, of course, which is the mecca of startup.
So inspiring, story, like where you came from, how you ended up here, and hearing the background in your family, really, sort of insightful. I read a lot about Coffee Meets Bagel and even heard some stuff before this interview. And so I'm excited to chat with you. I don't want to get so much into the origin story of CMB today. I want to kind of dive right into it, because you're in this unique position where I feel like human relationships and, their evolving nature, it's just going to be, I am fascinated to see what happens pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. What are three things that you're noticing right now that have changed in the past 60 days, as a result of COVID?
I would say, first and foremost is the value of people just realizing the value of community and value of human connection. We only realize the importance of certain things, or many things, when we actually don't have them anymore. And I think this pandemic, especially for us singles who are dating, and a lot of us live alone, and we're practicing shelter in place and social distancing alone. It's kind of coming, like, gripping with this realization that this human connection that we used to take for such a granted thing, it is such a powerful element of what makes us human, what gives joy to our life. And particularly in challenging times like right now, when there's so much uncertainty and things can kind of feel scary at times, that's when human connections are actually needed the most. And so I think this value of, I'm not talking about like swiping and, just seeing people on the screen kind of connection, but like real genuine connection. I think people are just realizing how important that is. And I think that having went through this like dramatically different experience for a few months, and hopefully it'll end soon and gradually become more normalized. But I think having experienced that, we're not going to forget that for a very, very long time. And I see it in like people's willingness to kind of put themselves out there to make that connection. So for example, we used to have this video feature on our dating app like long time ago. We couldn't really get people to actually adopt it. Because most of people were a little bit scared and of like things being awkward. Now, I think because we're just earning for this connection, we know how important it is. People are just kind of like braving up, putting themselves in front of cameras so that we can actually use it to reach out. We started this community meetup space called Coffee Talk, a few weeks into COVID-19 in the US and, a few shelter in city places. And I'm seeing such a huge demand for it and such a huge repeat rate. I mean, it just tells me, like it's just worth actually like putting ourselves out there.
What's the deal with Coffee Talk? So like, how is that behavior different than kind of normal dating? Are you matching people together are they just showing up in a room? Like, what's that look like that's different? I guess I'm really curious to Sunil's point. Like, what's really looking different over the course of the last 6 months? Totally get that we all want community. Well, I think that's real.
Yeah. Well, I think even just the willingness to engage in something like in video, like whether it's Coffee Talk or whatever else, like we just hadn't seen that kind of willingness to engage before this whole thing happened, because people are just a little bit more concerned about, how am I going to look? And, what if I have nothing to say? But I think because we're earning for such like a genuine connection, we're willing to kind of put that aside and like put ourselves out there more, because, connection is worth that risk.
I totally buy that.
So I have one somewhat follow-on question. I'm always interested in sort of, the extremes. You have the down the middle case where, so maybe you're seeing usage go up on the platform. It's great that people are engaging, more with video chat. It's amazing. What is something, unexpected or unusual that you've heard, that is either a positive or a negative, that is like, oh my gosh, this came completely out of left field. Either this is how people are using the platform, or they're doing more of this and it was an unintended thing. Is there anything completely unexpected that's happened over the past 60 days?
Let's see, completely unexpected. Well, I don't know if this is completely unexpected. Hindsight, it's kind of not really, but I didn't think about it before. There are a lot more users reaching out to actually get guidance around how to get, how to navigate dating in COVID, and also like just how to navigate conversations. And which is kind of funny in a way, because when, you would think that in dating, we're always talking and that's how we actually get to know each other. But I think in the absence of this physical kind of connection that we can make, the conversation is the only thing that we're left with. And so I think many of us are actually a little bit feeling lost, or again, like a little scared about having to kind of push that chemistry through just relying on conversation, and realizing, wow, actually, I need to, maybe there are some things that I actually need to do to get better at this. And so I think this is actually interesting, and I see it as a positive, like a outcome of COVID, us actually having to really just take dating through, do dating while just sticking to conversation, just sharing myself and asking questions, engaging, being really present, like all those things that we basically don't really think about, but now it's become like such a vital thing. And so that was kind of an unexpected outcome.
So maybe we just came up with a product idea for you. You're going to do the Coffee Meets Bagel therapy session in addition to the dating service. So let's talk about, so where does your product exist? Like, what is it in every state in the US? Is it global? Like, I actually am not familiar with the scale.
Yeah, it's global.
It's global. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's talk about at a global scale where dating is increasing or decreasing. Is it increasing more in Europe decreasing more in Russia, increasing more in the US, declining more in Korea? Like give us the scoop globally on what is actually happening with the volume of dating.
Well, like the market opportunity, the dating app in general is, there's a lot more opportunities abroad, like US versus international. So, regions like Asia, South America, there's just like a lot more emerging adoption of dating app. US is actually quite a mature market when it comes to dating apps. For Coffee Meets Bagel, we see a lot of opportunities and growth in Asia, particularly.
I mean, really specifically, like right now, like over the last 60 days, like what countries are dating more, what countries are dating less?
Oh, I see. Asia actually is dating more definitely than the US. And I don't think it's because like people are, in Asia, people are earning for connection more or something, but it's because COVID-19 actually, I think US, when it comes to the impact of COVID, relatively speaking to other countries, I think US is considered pretty severe versus in countries like Korea, Japan. I mean, it's not that they're not hit, but they were relatively quick to kind of adapt. And I think the life is as normal as it could be in those countries. So we do see more, less of an impact of COVID in countries like Asia than what we see in the US.
Ooh, okay. I like that. Now, next, more detailed question. Same idea. Like what's going on in the US? Like what states are dating more? What states are dating less over the last 60 days?
Well, so, there are two facets of this. So, and it's, I read somewhere that, COVID-19, of course, it's impacting different industries and different people, different industries like differently, but there's like no clear winner that's emerging because even industry that seems to benefit from COVID, there are also like a dark side that comes with it. So even for us, you talked about people actually chatting more, engaging more, the video chat, those are all the positive side of COVID. And we do see that more in places where there's stricter, restrictions in place, like shelter in place. So like New York and SF. And however, those are the same cities where we actually see decline in signups. And, if you think about it, it's kind of not surprising because when you're worried about your health, when you're worried about your job, like when the impact is heavier and psychologically there is a lot of worry, then it's hard to dedicate time to, entertainment or something that feels optional. And so, I think they're like, it's impacting us in different ways.
One thing that I really like about the Coffee Meets Bagel story is, and we've had, excuse me.
Bless you.
Bless you.
I had to get a sneeze out of the way there. And I couldn't avoid it. I tried to hold it in, wasn't working out. Is the fact that the site is not so much transactional, but is really focused on what it seems like are deeper relationships. And that's great. What aspects like right now are more favored? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what if people aren't so comfortable writing and, on video and they do better in person? What advice would you have for them? Because I have to imagine not everybody feels as comfortable, writing, to a potential match or stuff, on a regular basis or texting more. Is there any advice that you would have for people who just feel more comfortable, meeting in person, or what they can do to kind of stand out right now?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I do want to share with those people who are, having like hesitation around video or whatnot, because, I think for human being, it's natural to feel a little bit resistant and scared about something that we've never tried. And so one thing that I get asked a lot is like, isn't video awkward? Well, it may feel awkward because you've never done it. Like anything that we've never done and we're trying for the first time, it's very normal to feel awkward, but it doesn't mean that it's actually coming across awkward to the other person. And so I think that's an important thing to remember. Even if you feel awkward, it just means that you're doing it for the first time. And the other thing that I want to share is that for those people who actually have tried video, which it's still low. It's not like, 90% of people actually have tried dating. When we survey Coffee Meets Bagel users, so far we've seen like 20% of our users actually having done, reporting to us that I actually have done video dating. So it's still it's growing, but still not like crazy high. Those people who actually have done it have told us that they're so glad they tried it. And 87% of them actually plan to continue doing it even after COVID because they like it so much. It's really convenient. It doesn't cost anything. And it's, when it comes to dating app, one of the most common complaints that people make legitly is, hey, when I see the person in the first 5 minutes, I know that, I'm actually not really interested in this person because I got the vibe of this person totally wrong on the profile. Well, you don't actually have that problem with video, right? So people who have tried it are consistently telling us they plan to continue doing it even if they don't need to because COVID-19 is over. And so I think that's a really a good fact to remember. Oh, and then the last thing, one last thing to make it as less awkward as possible for you. I would think of this not as like, oh my God, video dating. What do I have to do differently? This is just another first date, which most of us have experience having done. And so instead of thinking, okay, I have to do something differently because it's a video date, I would just suggest that you consider it as a first date. Any kind of rules that you actually apply to first date, like, okay, I wanna look nice because I want them to know that I care. I want to be attentive. I want to make sure my environment is comfortable, so I'm not worried and frenzy about other things because it's already kind of like a nerve-wracking situation. First date is nerve-wracking for anyone, and so do your sound check and do your look at yourself to see how you look on the video, so that get those things out of the way, so you can really focus on the conversation and not feel as nervous. Like all those same rule that applies to physical first date applies right here, and so instead of thinking this is something different and just think of it as a first date.
Just look good from the waist up.
Prediction or two. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yasha, we did it again.
I owe each other $1.
Yep, it's me. I owe him $1. But I was just saying, Sunil, we know this rule already. You just have to dress well from the waist up. That's all. That's the big takeaway. That's what I heard.
Yeah, if you dress nice waist up and if you're comfortable down below, yeah, that's like best of both worlds.
Okay, all right. We're not gonna interrupt each other. I had one follow on, and then I think Yasha has a couple as well. But what's So what's a bold prediction you have for this period? And so one thing I think about a lot is, okay, so let's just say we do move to more video dating, and this is the path that we're going to take. If you had to make a bold prediction about the future of relationships in the context of Coffee Meets Bagel or really anything, dating sites in general, you've had a lot of success with Coffee Meets Bagel, introducing people who eventually get married, et cetera. Do you think, what are one or two predictions you have? Are weddings actually going to go up? Are they going to go down? Like what are the near and long-term predictions you would have for Coffee Meets Bagel or for relationships in general?
I think people's investment into just learning about what actually makes a great relationship, learning about how can I actually become a great dater. My prediction is that those people are going to think a lot more about those and invest a lot more in those going forward after COVID than before. And this is actually one of the things that I'm observing is missing in today's dating app world, daters' behavior that actually can make a very big difference in how satisfied we can be with our dating life. Like when I interview a lot of singles, not just Coffee Meets Bagel users, but just daters in general, a lot of us are very jaded when it comes to online dating. A lot of us are just doing it even though we don't feel like it because we feel like we have to. And not enough, a ton of swiping, but not enough actual genuine connections and real conversations and, dating, actual great dates happening. And one of the reasons why I see this is the case is because we don't really actually know, and I don't think dating apps do a good job, including Coffee Meets Bagel, and something that I'm trying to change, do a good job guiding our users when it comes to how to date. And we don't actually learn this in school. There is an art and science to how to use online dating apps well. And then there's an art and science when it also comes to how to go on a first date that actually leads to a second date. Kind of like what I was saying, like there is a theory and practice that you have to engage in if you want to actually build, have a really engaging conversation and be able to build that chemistry. Like you need to be able to share yourself, and you need to be able to put yourself out there. Like there's an art and science to this that I don't think definitely not my generation. We haven't been exposed to. And I think because of COVID-19 and the amount of like inward work that we're actually kind of being forced to go through right now, and amount of the guidance and help that we are actually being forced to seek out, I'm actually very hopeful and think that people are going to actually invest a lot more in learning how to do this better versus before. I don't think it was a common practice for us to be thinking like, oh, maybe I should actually learn how to date better, or study this. There's a lot of even outside of dating, I think mental wellness and like personal investment into your own personal well-being, like that it's going to be kind of similar to that, where because of COVID, I think that the interest that was already burgeoning, I think it's kind of gonna accelerate.
I think I kind of generally buy that. I got a couple questions. Appreciate the time here. So I want to seed you with the final question that we asked everyone that joins us on the podcast, and that's on the social networks that you spend your time, who's the recommended follow that you have for our listeners? So I'm going to seed you with that. And before that, I do have kind of one question. I'm looking for an example of something really cool that's happened over the last couple of months, probably on your dating site, but because of the environment that we're in. Like, have you had anybody that has found a partner and gotten married or gotten engaged? Like, tell us a happy story that we can share with our listeners today.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have one of the heartwarming stories that or incident that I had personally that I just like really made my day. Because of COVID, of course, everything's canceled, and there are a number of Coffee Meets Bagel couples whose wedding and honeymoon have been canceled. And one of them actually happened to be a good friend of my friend, my personal friend. And so they decided to kind of just do their own wedding in the backyard. Had to, lost a lot of money because they paid for the wedding venue and everything already. And then do a virtual Zoom, like a reception. And I basically Zoom bombed the wedding myself, and was there with my twin sister to surprise the bride and groom, because we wanted to just bring some, like a pleasant surprise to this couple whose wedding just got completely derailed because of COVID. And we actually partnered with this company called Getaway, which has like a really amazing, lovely outpost in the middle of nowhere. And we were able to actually gift them their little honeymoon kind of gift. They're able to operate even still because they're actually in the middle of nowhere. And then kind of so it was like really, really like a happy moment, and that kind of like snowballed into actually being able to offer that kind of gift to a lot more couples beyond that particular couples who I actually surprised their wedding with. So that was a really heartwarming moment. And, I've been really enjoying actually a lot of like companies or even people coming up with really creative ways to respond to COVID in a really heartwarming way. And so I think if there's any silver lining, like there has been a lot of brands. I mean, even like this one steakhouse actually turned themselves into butcher shop, like serving meat. Like, I think we're seeing a lot of resilience and creativity of human minds. So yeah. That was kind of wonderful to see.
I think that's cute. Well, I know that you and Sunil were chatting before I hopped on, and you were probably talking about the fact that we're not a breaking news podcast by any stretch, but I think it's pretty cool that you broke the news that you and your twin sister will join every wedding for every person that gets engaged and married while we're on quarantine. So I think that's really sweet. So thanks for offering that up. Now I'm teasing, of course. Look, we appreciate your time here today, and we want to end on the final question that we have for you, which is on the networks that you spend your time, who's a recommended follow?
I really love Tom Bilyeu and Lisa Bilyeu, who are the co-founders of Impact Theory. And they're like the go-to, Instagram or podcast or, they have a variety of social media channels that I and my twin sister also go to whenever we're feeling down and, skeptical and, all those like the down moments that a lot of us, and particularly entrepreneurs, go through, probably especially during this time. I always go to that, and then it's such a powerful. They have such powerful content, and that kind of reminds you of the potential and the potential that you have. So. I highly recommend following Tom and Lisa Bilyeu because I just get every time I go there, it's such a huge like pick me up.
Well, everybody needs a little pick me up right here. Dawoon, thank you for taking the time with us today, and we appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yeah.
So Yasha, I'm not sure if you know this. I mean, this was a great interview, of course, but something like 3 of our 5 most popular episodes have to do with dating.
Seriously? Boy, what's that say about us? What's that say about our listeners?
I guess there's just a lot of public interest in this whole topic, and particularly now. But we, really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I have definitely been to my first Coffee Meets Bagel wedding, and maybe you will too someday.
I'm waiting for my invites. All right. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening to This Is Your Life in Silicon Valley. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as Sunil and I enjoyed recording it, please go back to the application you found this podcast on, rank us 5 stars, leave us a comment. We read every single one. Thanks for listening to This Is Your Life in Silicon Valley.